Tell me if this sounds like you or someone you know. It's election day. You survived months of brutal campaigning filled with controversy, bitter partisanship, and enough advertisements to make you wish for the days of pop-up ads. So you're excited to do both your civic duty and ring in the end of the contest. Enter the booth, take a look at your ballot, and look down at your two main choices. Neither are particularly appealing. You know you have friends who are really jazzed about voting for one or the other, but you just can't shake the disdain that seems to permeate from the candidates. But a ray of hope appears. Beneath is a line for you to enter in a write-in candidate. You jot down the name of someone you feel is qualified for the office, and you proudly submit your ballot. Democracy works. There's a good chance that this actually does sound familiar. The 2016 presidential contest has pitted the least popular and perhaps most polarizing candidates in decades. A number of people feel that the controversy surrounding both of them just leaves them with no good options. They are utterly disaffected. In fact, former governors and presidential candidates Jeb Bush and Mitt Romney have indicated that they're going to write in candidates as opposed to vote for either Clinton or Trump. And such a move begs a question though. Is it actually possible for a write-in candidate to win the presidency? No. Just no. I mean, it's not even one of those conditional no's like we saw back in the third parties video where you have a yes, no, but probably not, kind of. It's just a no. Just totally flat out no. To be clear, it's not that it's a legal impossibility. Nowhere in the Constitution or in federal election law does it state that the winner of the contest actually has to be printed on the ballot. They just have to meet the prerequisites of office and win enough electoral votes. And it's not that people haven't won with write-in campaigns either. Strom Thurmond won a Senate seat in 1956 as a write-in candidate after the Democrats refused to endorse him. And Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski won as a write-in candidate in 2010 after losing the Republican primary. It's simply a matter of scope. Whereas you can have successful third parties that eventually percolate up to the national level over time, it's not possible for a write-in candidate to do the same. There's a whole slew of reasons for this, but for the sake of brevity, we're just going to stick with three: localism, technology, and election law. Despite the successes I highlighted a second ago, very few candidates actually have the capacity to be able to mount a successful write-in campaign, especially on the national level. Name recognition is probably the biggest barrier in this case, as many individuals do not know who these candidates are. There's actually a lot of benefits that come with being recognized and endorsed by one of the major parties. But not only do few actually have the raw capacity, it's also kind of rare for write-in candidates to be, relevant. Funny enough, this little nugget is actually something that we share with Russia. In the years after embracing the procedural aspects of democracy, Russian politics had a bunch of quote-unquote couch parties, or political parties with literally just enough people to fill a living room couch. These parties would get a handful of votes, but their constituencies were all family members or close friends of the proposed MP. So it was, and is, politics on the super local level. One without any real chance of national relevance. There isn't a lot of good data for write-in candidates in US elections, but there are 2012 results from my home county show that write-in candidates garnered 500 votes, or 0.24% of the total amalgamated contest. Like, it is a really, really tiny number. But the fact of the matter is that really, really tiny number outperformed every other individual candidate aside from Barack Obama, Mitt Romney, and Gary Johnson. And now, it's not clear, because of the secret ballot, whether or not those were all for a specific individual or for a set of individuals, but at the risk of using anecdote as data, my family all planned on voting for Snoopy this year, and my fiance plans on writing in my father. Which, I'm sure if he's watching, he'll recognize as a sweet gesture, but you gotta keep an eye on your blood pressure, Padre, so don't be getting any ideas on me. But it isn't just the nature of how these votes work that are prohibiting third-party candidates. It's also in how we vote.
Wait, SpongeBob! We're not cavemen! We have technology!
Although votes used to be punched out or bubbled in and then tabulated later, voting has now entered the 21st century. Electronic voting systems have made their homes in numerous states and counties, and efforts to make them more advanced and accessible are already well underway. There's a whole slew of questions that come with using these systems, and we'll address those in a future video, but there's one particular thorn that we'll address here, and that is some of the issues that arise from the general user interface of some of these systems. Most electronic systems operate by having you interact with a screen, the computer then marking a piece of paper based upon your choice, and then analyzing where those marks are to tabulate all of the votes. It's called an optical scan voting system, and it's usually fairly easy to navigate. When Florida introduced it in the 1970s, they did so in such a way that all but eliminated the ability to vote in a write-in candidate. You have to remember that these machines weren't as advanced as the touchscreens and tablets that we have today. They weren't capable of following a digital pen stroke. they were largely contingent on very simple user interfaces, prompts, and scripts. And although the state law mandated that they had to still be able to allow people to put write-in candidates, the Attorney General at the time, Robert Shevin, noted that, quote, "There are no longer any provisions in the election code for write-in ballots. With electronic voting, they have been effectively prohibited." Now this was nearly 40 years ago, and a number of advancements have happened since then. Most electronic voting systems are now capable of taking in write-in candidates, and a number of counties just avoid the systems altogether for this and a whole bunch of other reasons, effectively dodging the controversy. It's difficult to say how much these changes have impacted the capabilities of write-in candidates to win or to lose elections, because this isn't just a state issue, it's a county issue, and that data is very, very, very difficult to aggregate. So we really can't be sure how much of an impediment this proves for write-in candidates, but we can be certain that it's more than zero. But technology can be, and indeed in many places already has been, amended. And it would be disingenuous to call individuals such as Bernie Sanders or Mike Pence mere couch candidates due to their national name recognition. But there's one last thing that's less of a hurdle to overcome and more like the walls in Attack on Titan: the stalwart and obdurate rule of law. You see, the states aren't known to be too fond of electoral surprises, especially when they come in the form of write-in candidates who can share the name of buttloads of other people. As a result of this understandable leeriness, they lay down some ground rules that prohibit a surprise write-in candidate from winning. 34 states require that all serious write-in candidates file some paperwork well ahead of election day so that their supporters can actually have their votes counted for them. If they don't file out this paperwork, then individuals who vote for them run the risk of having their votes not even counted at all, or at best, just thrown into a catch-all box called write-in. And it's not like the other 16 are all write-in utopias. In fact, 9 of them prohibit write-in candidates at all. How can this be? Well, while the National Supreme Court has dealt with the constitutionality of forcing someone to or not to vote, only the state courts have dealt with the constitutionality of write-in candidates, that is, whether or not they need to be on the ballot. So these 9 states just decided to do away with it, period. And this isn't a minor point. 54 electoral votes are tied in with this, which is 1/4 of the necessary votes in the Electoral College that are necessary to win the presidency. The deck was stacked against write-in candidates from the get-go. While it is still mathematically possible, it is incredibly unlikely from a historical standpoint. No president has managed to win office without at least one of these states. Is it still technically possible? I mean, sure, but first a whole bunch of states would have to overwrite their current electoral laws, and there'd have to be a seismic shift in how we identify ourselves politically. I wouldn't go out and buy any lottery tickets. So does this mean that no one should ever put in a write-in candidate for president? Well, not necessarily. The right to free expression in the United States holds that we can vote for whomever we want or no one at all for whatever reasons seem important to us. And although there will be some who scream that this is functionally equivalent to throwing your vote away, there are a bunch of different reasons for voting aside from mere functionality. And some of these reasons will logically bring us to a write-in protest vote. However, on the presidential level at least, we all have to be aware that any dreams we may harbor of our candidates somehow stealing the show is just that, a dream. Unless we all commit right now to voting for Snoopy. Call me crazy, but I think we legitimately have a chance here. What do you guys think? Could a write-in candidate actually win? Could you see yourself voting for a write-in candidate, or have you ever done so in the past? And even if it's impossible, or at least highly unlikely for a candidate to win in this way, do you think that we still have the right to have write-in candidates on our ballots? Let me know the answer to these questions, or maybe some other thoughts that spawned up while watching this video down in the comments. I look forward to reading them all and replying to a few of them in the next office hours. Links for everything, as always, are down in the doobly-doo, and if you enjoy watching this, I hope you consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.